In this video, we'll take a look at a migrated phone from Enterprise to MPP that's already registered to WebEx calling. If you notice the part number CP-8865-K9, so this is already registered to WebEx calling to a user. We want to go ahead and move this phone to another user. So what we're going to do is we need to go back to WebEx Control Hub and delete this phone from the current user. So right now we're within WebEx Control Hub, devices 8865, and then we're going to go ahead and delete the phone. Okay, successfully deleted the 8865 phone. And since this was a migrated phone, what we need to do next is we need to actually run the firmware migration task again. Two reasons. One is we need to generate a new virtual license for this phone. At the same time, we want to associate this phone with the new user. So I'm just going to give this an 8-character name that's unique. And then we're going to click on next. There's going to be 3 checks that this is actually going to do here once we upload the CSV file. So I'm going to modify this CSV file. I'm going to associate this phone with user number 1. So this will make the change. The type is going to be user, so we're not going to touch that. When we're associating to user, the extension and also the phone number field are left blank. Device, we're going to leave IP. It's 8865. We're going to make sure the MAC address is correct and the location, in my case, I'm calling it site 1. And then I'm going to save it to my hard drive here with the changes I made a few moments ago regarding user 1. And then we're going to go back to WebEx Control Hub and we're going to simply upload the CSV file. Okay, that's the CSV file we just modified. Okay, so this is check number 1. Okay, so now it's going to do check number 2. It's just verifying a number of different things to make sure everything looks correct. And this can be useful if you're doing a large quantity of phones. You do still need to make sure the model of the phone is correct, the MAC address is correct, and of course the user that you're associating the phone to. Okay, this will be the last step as far as the checks that it needs to go through for the firmware migration task tool. And each of these steps typically takes 15, 20, 30 seconds. Okay, if you notice, it says it's ready for migration. So at this point of time, we have a virtual license that's been created for this phone, and also we have the phone that's going to be now associated to user number 2. So we're going to need to reset the phone back to factory default. So I'm going under device administration and then factory reset, and I'm going to say OK. So the way I got into this menu was hitting the gear button. This is going to take a number of minutes for the phone to factory reset, and most likely we'll probably see multiple reboots, and that's okay. So just to sum up what we're doing here is basically this was a migrated phone that was originally running enterprise firmware either with CUCM or Cisco Spark, and it was migrated over to MPP firmware using WebEx Control Hub firmware migration tool. It was associated to user number 2. It was a functional phone, and I had some changes I need to make. So I went ahead and removed the phone from user number 2. So you notice we went into WebEx Control Hub, we deleted the phone, and the phone is no longer associated with user number 2. Next step is we ran the firmware migration task tool, and we adjusted the CSV file to make sure that this phone now associated with user number 1. We went ahead and uploaded the CSV file, and then it did its 3-step checks. And then this last step is we have reset the phone back to factory default. When the phone comes up, you may see a wrong date and time. So if you notice June 03, 12:41 a.m., oh, the date and time just changed to the proper date and time. That is fairly normal. So you may see some screens that pop up like this one, enter activation code, and it'll go away. So just give the phone some extra time for it to go through its motions, for the date and time to update. Also, if there's any activation screen that comes up, just give it a few minutes for it to go through the steps it needs to go through. So saying configuration check in progress. Each of the reboots generally takes about a minute and a half roughly. And then for the phone to do the handshake with the WebEx calling server, it can take another 30 seconds to 2 minutes. Okay, so I see we have a phone number, a PSTN phone number for user number 1. Okay, it looks like it's going to do another reboot here. In any case, each of the reboots is about a minute and a half. The handshaking, once the phone comes up into runtime, is approximately 30 seconds to 2 minutes with WebEx calling. And the key thing is you want to make sure somebody's in front of the phone. If the phone is remote, that they can give you feedback what is occurring. Just in case there's any type of hiccups, the phone needs to be power cycled, factory reset, etc., etc. And by the way, the firmware that the phone currently has and the firmware that currently WebEx calling is using is 11.3.7 as the recording of this video. When you're viewing this video in the future, most likely that has changed, so you definitely want to look at the documentation. Okay, we have our extension 205, which is for user 1. Excellent. And then we also have the phone number, the PSTN phone number. We'll check here in a moment for dial tone to make sure we're getting dial tone. Okay, and we're going to go back to WebEx Control Hub and check on the status of the phone. There might be a delay before the status of the phone is reflected in WebEx Control Hub. Okay, it does show it's online and it's associated to user 1. Great. Okay, well, it looks like we've completed our task here. Thank you for viewing the video.